What's that?
Good. All right. You know, we say our 9 principles every service, and there's a lot of depth to those principles. And when you say you're a spiritualist, or when you decide to label yourself really anything, don't you make sure you cross all the I's and dot all the T's and understand, why you're saying, I'm this, right? And we say, I'm a spiritualist, we are spiritualists, and what does that mean? Well, first of all, we come together today because we are all an expression of God, not separate from, but literally within us carrying a piece of that infinite intelligence, that divine creative source. How amazing is that? How amazing that every person that we will cross paths with, who have been here, are here, and will be here again, are all a piece of that divine spark, that divine piece of God or infinite intelligence. Expressed through everything, right? It says right in our principle, expressed through all of nature. So every person we cross, every blade of grass we see, every drop in the ocean, every animal is all of this expression of God. And then we go further on to affirm that true religion is living within these expressions and these natural and spiritual laws. And let me tell you, there's many. And I'm sure you have found some and are looking for more or trying to understand more. I always say that's the best, right? Knowledge, and you never really truly understand things, because I find out the more we know, the less we know and the more we want to know. Now there's a funny statement, right? But it's true, that constant search for that more. And that true religion, basically defining us as spiritualists, is something that we do not just here in this hour, but that we do within all hours of every day throughout the week. It's basically the actions and deeds, right? And so my big question probably for an infinite amount of time will be, but how? I need directions, and not the IKEA type of directions. I need real, specific, easy directions to follow. And I think that there's a lot of hints in our religion and in our ability through our principles, through our prayers, through our hymns. We said in the healing service, we always say, I will do my part. That just doesn't mean for healing. It just means for your existence, right? We're spirit having a human experience. We really do need to embrace this human experience, right? Because it really is just a small bleep in the big radar of our life. So let's embrace sometimes being human and everything that comes with it. But I will do my part, that meaning action, right? Forward movement, actions and deeds. And then, and there's certain songs, and one of the songs that kind of stick with me is Open My Eyes. It's one of our songs. But there's a part in there that says, silently now I wait for thee. Ready, my God, thy will to see. Open my eyes, my ears, my mouth, my heart, and illumine me. And don't we say as spirit, we're always looking for that high vibration, that enlightenment, that unfoldment, that development. So how do we do it? Well, be still. How hard is it to be still? That's what this lesson for today is about, stillness. How often in this world, isn't it nuts, I think? I can hear my grandmother laughing, she's like, McDonald's was a treat on Sundays once a month. Now we pretty much eat drive-through. What do you want? You can find anything in a moment, in an instant. I think we look at some statistics, great statistics. For the first time ever in the entire existence of humanity, there are 5 generations working together. 5 generations. 5 different decades, or a little bit more, coming together to work in the same place. And how fast things have changed. It wasn't that long ago that the train or the plane was invented, and now we can go anywhere, right? Possibilities are limitless. Everything is instant. Well, shouldn't our enfoldment, shouldn't spiritual enlightenment be as instant? Right? Should we be able to order it on Amazon and get it delivered to our door in 3 hours by a drone? I don't know, right? But how do we absorb that spiritual love? And that's through stillness. You know, stillness is not necessarily prayer. It's not problem solving, and it's really not planning. It's just allowing yourself to be in the moment. You know, how well do you do that? You know, this is going to be a thing for you, and don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to, you know, say how often, but just I want to give you things to think about. How often are you still? Doing nothing and really just being still, quieting the mind and simply being. You know, I've heard this quote numerous times, you know, we need to stop being human beings, you know, or human doings, excuse me. That we become these human doings and we forget to be how to be human beings. And I kind of think that's a little bit true. I mean, are we already at the grocery store with our list? You know, well, before we're even done with one project, we've already moved on in our mind to the next project and so forth and so on, that we forget to kind of how be. But if we look back at ancient teachings, you know, we all do, as spiritualists, we look at everything as a way of teaching and knowledge. And we look at, if we look at Psalms 46, number 10, it says, "Be still and know I am God." This is a tremendously difficult thing to do in our media-rich, always turned on, over-communicated society. Noisy crowds into every empty space, leaving us spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically drained, isn't it? We say with that law of vibration, that law of attraction, we also have to remember that law of balance, because we are always inundated. Mother Teresa expressed it in this way. I kind of am a fan of her. I've tried to save the world numerous times. I'm sure all of you do, right? We all want to do our part, and we want to save the world. But she expresses that in two different ways. One, she says, if you want to end world hunger, feed your neighbor. Sometimes we tend to look too big, and we should be looking right here at home. But in this stillness, Mother Teresa expressed it this way. We need to find God, and God cannot be found in noise and restlessness. God is a friend of silence. See how nature, trees, flowers, grass, grows in silence. See the stars, the moon, and the sun, and how they move in silence. We need silence to be able to touch souls. And that really moved me, because as spiritualists, we believe this continuity, right? Spirit is right here next to us. Our loved ones, our teachers, our friends, our guides are right next to us. But somehow we don't and can't hear them when we are inundated with noise of our physical being. We need to take that moment and kind of be still. You know, I don't believe truly, though I'm sure there's a few monks in some mountains, I am sure, that will say, I can silence my mind and not a thought comes in. I think that's a lot of dedication and work. I don't think it's impossible, because nothing is impossible. We know that through this expression of the divine. But they are dedicated and trained, right? I always laugh in spiritualism, one of the common things you'll hear is thoughts are things, right? And you hear it all the time. So everything is created first with a thought, and then you speak it, do it, create it, manifest it. And I think to myself, well, I sure am trying to manifest a lot up here. I wonder why all this chaos keeps happening around me. Well, personal responsibility. But they train it. Do you know what I mean? They train, they practice the stillness. It becomes a habit, an everyday habit. You know, I think myself to a six-pack in a size 2, but I have yet to go to the gym. I have not done my part. Eventually I will. But we have to do our part. So in that silence, and here Mother Teresa expresses it, that we need it to touch the souls. So it already says right there, we need it to touch spirit, for spirit to touch us, for us to hear spirit. Abba Pullman, one of the ancient desert fathers, taught his disciples this: if you are silent, you will have peace wherever you live. How strong is that statement? A big one. Because a lot of times we put our happiness or our stillness or our connection to God in other people's hands. If I just move here, if I just get a new job, if I just change, if I so forth and so on, and then I'll know peace, right? But here it says you will have peace wherever you live if we can take that moment of stillness. So I'm sure we don't have to continue on about why we need stillness in our lives, right? I think we kind of know it helps us maintain that perspective, that open-mindedness. You also want to stay connected to your true self. Isn't that it? You know, that soul inside. Have you ever noticed, and if you haven't, I challenge you this, go home and put on your favorite music, sit in your favorite chair, maybe have your favorite cup of tea or something that brings you peace, and just kind of still for a moment. And doesn't your soul just come alive? Don't things just become more meaningful? And the humanness, the bills, the mundaneness of life, of this human experience, tends to shed away when we take that moment to be still. You know, why you look at spiritual healing and why it's a part of our service, right? And it's because it forces us to connect to that divine. And that energy is still in this room. You know, it builds and we walk in and we feel like, wow, this is a great place. This is where I want to be. It's because of that stillness and that vibration of healing that we've experienced. And you want to live more as a human being versus a human doing. So how do we practice stillness? There's the question. I need the simple form instructions, right? Tell me how to do it. So in that spirit, let me offer you a few suggestions on how you can practice stillness in your own journey and reclaim some interior margin, some self-expression of the soul. You have to really schedule time for it. Now, I don't recommend you do it while driving or operating heavy machinery, PSA, just because, right? But you want to find time. Set your alarm 5 minutes earlier, right? Or go to bed 5 minutes earlier. Take that time. You know, find a way or a place. You know, I looked out here and you have this beautiful gazebo. Maybe before getting in your car and running to the next appointment, go sit out there for a minute, or 2, or 3, right? Find a place to do it also. You don't always have to do it in the same place at the same time, but you want to really get in the habit of doing it daily. So sometimes, for some people, making a practice and saying, this is the spot I do it in. This is the spot I find comfort in. Maybe it's in your garden, maybe it's by your lake, maybe it's in your, grandchild's room, wherever it is, and you can just, with grandchildren, just go right in. Your kids don't have to invite you, just go right in. No, I'm kidding. But, every day at 5 or whatever, find a place. The best thing to do is also to try to set a timer, just because we don't want to get too carried away that we forget and we're late for work, or we get so relaxed that we fall asleep and miss the party. So, kind of set a timer and really start to notice. And here's the challenge. Set it for just a minute or 2 minutes, right? That doesn't seem like a big deal, does it? To ask for 2 minutes out of your life seems pretty simple. And then maybe the following week, challenge it to 3. I don't even think you'll get through a full week and you're already up to 5. Because you realize once you make that connection and that stillness and you feel that power of the divine, you feel that connection to God, to the infinite intelligence, you just are willing to give 5 more minutes, right? Or 6 more minutes, because it helps you. Be present when you're being still. I know that sounds weird, but I had a friend of mine tell me, make your thoughts like balloons. right? So go ahead and allow the thought to come in, and as soon as it comes in, allow it to just gently leave. And if it tends to be a weighted down balloon, right, because maybe it's something that's really coming up that's giving you a little bit of anxiety or stress, then go ahead, see the balloon come in with the brick tied to it, but then cut the brick, cut the string so you watch the balloon go. You know, be present in that moment. And then also recalling that peace that you felt throughout the day also helps us establish a pattern of stillness, right? It also helps us remember what it's like for that moment to be still. And you know what's interesting is in that stillness, that's when Spirit touches us, right? If you really think about a moment that a loved one's presence has come around you, it would have been in that moment, if only for a split second, that you were still. I hear people tell me about their loved ones coming through to them while they're washing the dishes. Mundane nothingness. Their mind just goes, and all of a sudden they heard their name being called by their loved one. Or the smell of a perfume coming in as they're sitting there watching TV, just about to turn it off and go to bed. They feel that presence of Spirit coming in and touching us. And it's just because we've made our thoughts be bigger and become real and material that we can't hear them. So it's in this stillness that we allow them to kind of come in. And perhaps the most important lesson of all of this is really, truly just to start. Really practice doing it, right? Really get to know the self-discipline of stillness and just try it. The busier you are in your life right now, the more important stillness becomes, right? So the busier that you are, it is more important that you realize that this need for stillness is the most important part of your daily practices. So, you know, as we continue on with this service and touching in with Spirit and hearing these messages, you know, I've never heard a Spirit once say, oh, go get more busy. Right? Like, you know, go get more busy. They're usually saying, take that time and connect. I feel you, you feel me. You know, they're giving us those times. So when we go about practicing, really, because it truly is practice, this whole life experience is nothing but a practice. For our soul, a journey for our soul, the practice of knowledge, the practice of relearning, and continual learning. So as you go on your adventure this week, this practice of life, this game of life, take the moment just to be still. And it'll help you on so many levels. You know, it's also called practicing the pause. I'm sure all of you have somebody who likes to get under your skin. It's just vibration, right? They don't vibrate on the same channel that you vibrate on, right? They listen to rock and roll and you listen to classical. But when dealing in that, if you can find the stillness, the pause, if only for a second, it'll change the outcome of the event. This infinite intelligence, this divine knowledge, and you have it, each and every one of you have it within. You just have to take a moment to connect with it. So I wish you luck on your journey of life, and I am sure we will continue to grow and learn together. And know that being a spiritualist isn't necessarily a defining way of religion, but it's a defining way of lifestyle. So I ask, how do you choose to live? Thank you.